Chapter Prologue. Köykkä surveyed the city, noting that the chaos of his regicide had begun to subside. The local factions began asserting their own form of government before a new ruler could even be crowned. Hanging his weapons, he sought a moment of respite. Instead, he was approached by Seamus and given news of dealings in their homeland to the north. Many things had been kept from Seamus in the years since Köykkä spirited him south of the land bridge that connected this kingdom to their northern barbaric tribal lands. Secrets, it would seem, that it was time to illuminate for this young warrior. The past had always been something Köykkä tried to keep behind him, always moving forward. But for young Seamus, the past held a key to the legacy he was denied before he was even old enough to remember. Agreeing to investigate the dealings of the North, Köykkä began preparing himself for the conversation he knew he would have to have with this spirited barbarian. As kings fall, new legends will rise. Chapter A Passage North. After a night of discussion, Seamus convinced Köykkä to consider a journey northward to inspect their ancestral lands. Köykkä still hesitant, the weight of secrets kept from Seamus pulling him down, he contacted a former associate to broker passage on his ship. Realizing the spring storms may make the journey perilous, a deal was brokered and Köykkä paid their passage. Secrets, Köykkä realized, must be brought to light before coming ashore. He began his preparations for their voyage and the impending consequences of his silence for these past years. Chapter Mustering the Crew. Köykkä alerted the heroes of the hall to the oncoming journey. Though passage had been booked, a crew for this journey must be gathered. Knowing his limitations on a seafaring vessel, Köykkä sought out able-bodied shipmates to ensure passage north. Fortunately, the assassin had many ties to loyal villains who owed a debt to the hall. Many answered his call, and the crew was assembled. In the meantime, his blades needed sharpening, and Seamus took to the task of re-equipping himself for the journey. Chapter News of dire consequence. Weeks of preparation had come and gone, and Seamus had suddenly gone missing. Finding new bounties placed outside the hall for our band of heroes, Köykkä and Mishika realized that perhaps something truly foul may be afoot. All search plans were halted, however, as a stranger bearing the armor of Köykkä's tribe, the Kura, arrived telling horrendous tales of a strange corruption spreading throughout their tribe. Not sure what to think of this news, Köykkä realized it were possible that Seamus, finally realizing the urgency of their departure, may have ventured ahead to track down this threat. With sudden urgency, Köykkä and Mishika agreed to leave with this hunter from the north. Though something seemed off about this man calling himself Ogre. Chapter Perplexing Impatience yields great results. Fresh off the chance meeting with the Kura hunter, known only as Ogre, Mishika found herself annoyed with the concept of having to search the length and breadth of the island continent in search of Seamus. Brandishing a bracelet charm she had fashioned just for moments such as this, Mishika spoke the command words, and in a glorious burst of light, Seamus simply appeared. Confused by the magics the guild mistress had up her sleeves, Köykkä found himself more eager to venture north, knowing that he had allies capable of potent sorcery to battle against whatever magical turmoil had beset his people. But the question lingered in both of their minds: where had Seamus gone, and what led to him wishing to depart alone? Chapter The Assassin's Dilemma. Coming to terms with the fact that Mishika's magics were more than he had ever imagined, Köykkä set out one fateful morning in search of power of his own. The constant tinge of betrayal still fresh in his mind from his time away from the hall, the apprentice that had turned on him, his origins further north, and his life as a simple hunter weighed heavy on his heart. He was no longer the hunter, he had become an assassin, but even that wasn't enough for Köykkä's ambition. He had heard word of a seer outside the borders of this city, one who could not only foretell the fates of men, but awaken in them strength fueled by their inherent potential. Knowing that as he could not simply take on the likes of the powerful sorceress necromancers in his northern homeland, he sought out this seer. Through forest and over hills, he began his hunt to find the one who might be able to better prepare him for what lay ahead. Chapter Unexpected Allies. Köykkä's journey took him many miles on foot through dense terrain. After a day's journey, he realized perhaps the map he had purchased may have led him astray. That is, until he realized he was not alone in the wilderness. With the silent stalking of a true northern hunter from Köykkä's tribe, the stranger calling himself Ogre approached Köykkä before he could react. A brief dialogue convinced Köykkä that Ogre didn't mean any harm, but in fact wished to accompany him in search of the seer to better prepare for their journey home. Emerging from the brush, they noticed another hero from the hall had also been following Köykkä. Finding the clearing that was to lead them to the seer's alcove, they were greeted by one of the seer's sworn protectors. Finding themselves flanked by these two woodland warriors, the allies had no choice but to relinquish their weapons as suddenly the seer approached. They regard Köykkä as she had already foreseen their arrival earlier that afternoon. She bid her warriors guide the weary travelers from the hall to her fire, so that she may prepare the herbs needed to grant a vision of their journey ahead. Conducting her rites, she foretold of the dangers they would face from without, as well as within their ranks. She placed heavy enchantments upon the allies, and conducted the rituals to ensure they would last. As the night drew to a close, she bid the heroes rest and embark the next day. Chapter: Returning home. Late into the night, Köykkä remained by the fire, noticing a change in himself after the seer's ritual. Feeling a spark of electricity in his arm and a pull toward the fire, he outstretched his hand and watched as a waft of energy began to gather and take shape. Certain that something had indeed taken place, he laid to rest that night. But it was a restless sleep, plagued with visions of dread, hordes of his people, and the neighboring tribes turned into something unnatural. Yet, within these visions he felt a familiarity, a sudden pull within that felt like some perversion of nature, luring him to a type of unlife similar, yet not mindless like the people in his vision. Morning arrived, and Köykkä bid his fellows from the hall goodbye, preferring to travel alone with his thoughts as he wrestled with the memories of the vision and the sudden manifestation of power he exhibited. Over the span of his journey, he felt that pull to darkness once more, but his years of focus and training proved the stronger. Returning to the hall, he greeted Seamus, who seemed eager to hear where Köykkä and the other heroes had disappeared to. Recounting the tale, he bid the young warrior be patient as they gather their forces. And now, more ships, to travel to their homeland, to face whatever evil has befallen their people. That night, however, Köykkä awoke in a cold sweat, body tremors overtaking his senses as he felt something tearing through his very being. Rushing to the mirror, he realized all was not well. He had indeed changed. Into what? He didn't know. Chapter: A Tangled Web. Returning to the Hall of Heroes, Ogre recounted a tale of his journey home. The forest was densely quiet, and when returning to the city, the streets were barren. But something deeper was stirring in the hall. The heroes banded together and took to the streets, sporting the banner of the hall to ensure their statement of presence in the lands. Chapter: An Unforgiving Journey. After hearing the tale from Ogre the evening prior, the heroes set out from the hall to see what had befallen the forest surrounding the seer's encampment. Seamus, Köykkä, and their newest companion of the hall, Elrandor, set out to see if Ogre's account of the forest seemingly engulfing the path overnight was true. Their journey began simply enough, but the sweltering heat of the forest made them take pause and remove their armor to stay packed on their steeds, as they realized the path had in fact simply vanished within the dense undergrowth. Swords in hand, Köykkä set to task to try and clear a path inward so they might find a familiar landmark to guide them further. All the while, Seamus pressed Köykkä about why he had sought the seer to begin with, and what he had kept hidden from the young dwarven barbarian all these years. Dusk began creeping in, and the trio quickly learned they had, in fact, run themselves in circles through the woods. Lost, but not dismayed, they settled in and broke camp for the night. Fireside, Köykkä readied himself to tell young Seamus the truth of his lineage.